Hey YouTube, we're sitting here again buying some real estate from the comfort of our couch, or at least thinking about it. Here's another property I'm going to analyze, see if we should buy a little piece of this. Starting price per, per share, or it's not really shares, but per token right now, 47.32. I think we'll actually end up paying a little bit more than that, but I'll explain why in a little while. If you haven't been watching my videos, I'm Joe Cacioppolia. I'm a real estate investor. I'm also a real estate agent in San Antonio, Texas, who works exclusively with investors. So spend a lot of time looking at deals here locally. Recently, have started buying some stuff on platforms like Lofty and some others, trying to one, really just figure out is there value to be had from these sites, because the way they work is a little bit different than buying stuff in real life. Also, using it as I get a lot of clients that ask me about real estate investing, but don't really have the money yet to buy their own property, or maybe they're not ready to house hack or whatever it is. And they've got, $50, $100, a couple $1,000 they want to put on a platform like this. So I've been experimenting with a few of them to see if I can recommend them. So far, there's definitely some good and some bad. I try to share both. There's some interesting properties that you can get a piece of, and this is one I'm checking out today. It's in Kansas City, Kansas. It's a 3 bedroom, 1 bath, 1,300 square foot home. One of the things I like to do, and I talk about a lot, if you've seen some of my other videos, they're both on platform due diligence and off platform due diligence. And what I mean by that, Lofty, they actually give you some, more due diligence items than almost any of the other ones I've looked at. You can find out, you can actually look at the lease agreement, you can look at their recent ledgers, you can look at the appraisal, which I'm going to take a look at today. This particular home was appraised at $215,000 about a year ago. You can see, the notes from the property manager, what's been going on. They do show you a rental yield. This is always just like a 1 month snapshot, and so it's not very accurate. If if this doesn't mean that this is the return that you're going to get in the long run, which is one of my main complaints with this site. Um, Same thing with the financials. They'll give you. They're basically annualizing what's happening in 1 month every time. So it gives you a cap rate. You can see on this one, there's no repairs and maintenance. There's no leasing commissions, there's, or renewal fees, or, um, vacancy allowance, collection allowance. So you're really getting a little bit, it's going to be lower than that 6.45 cap. But in general, you can see, they give you a lot of information on their platform. One of the things that I like that they've changed recently is it's easy to look at, like, the long-term prices of their tokens. You can see this particular one was trading a lot cheaper about a month ago. I dug into that a little bit on the Discord, which, if you're not a member of the Discord, you should be. If you're investing on this site, jump into that Discord, and you get a lot of info. But what it looks like is they actually had a glitch that dropped the rental yield to zero for a short time. A lot of people sold. Um, I don't know what happened these other times. Maybe they did have, vacancies, but it's one of the things that I've mentioned a few times. I think there's some inefficiencies on these platforms, and it's, one of the things I've tried to pick up a lot of discounted tokens. I missed these ones, although they're still a little bit less than what they were originally sold for. And if you look at the order book, there's a bunch at $48. And so this is really the price I'm considering. It's cheaper to buy with a limit order than buy with their market orders. And so even though this is higher than what their stated market price is, I think I'd actually save a little money by buying it with a limit order at that price. Uh, I'm going to actually put them both in there and see. But first, let's see. Okay. So if I'm paying $48 per token, what's that purchase price, right? So there's 4,326 tokens outstanding. I can see that right here. Multiply that by 48. So that assumes that's a value of 207,648. That's before paying the fees. But so I want to compare that. Okay, is that a fair price? I looked at the appraisal from last year, and they said 215,000. All right, so we're below that. Obviously, also when you're buying these, you look at every other document. I try to do a lot of this stuff before I start recording the video. Just because I'm comfortable buying this one doesn't mean you should be. So you should look at everything, look at the inspection reports, look at click every single tab basically and look at that. This is managed by Evernest. That's actually a company I've worked with here in town locally. Well, not, I've helped them sell some of the stuff that they had, in their, they had managed it, we gotten ready to sell it, and I've helped them with that. Um, because of that, I feel like I have a decent idea of what their property maintenance looks like as far as like how well properties are maintained. I think they're not the best, but they're definitely not the worst either. So I'm pretty okay with them as a manager for something like this. So what are we going to do off platform? Well, first of all, I want to, they give you a little blurb on the market, right? But I want to look at the market. I don't know a lot about Kansas City, Kansas. Uh, so my first step is always Wikipedia. You can see I had this page open. You should really read every single thing on here. Like depending on how much money you're going to put into, this, you might want to just do a small amount, and then maybe do less due diligence, or if you're going to put a meaningful amount for you, do a lot more. Um, you can see it had a shrinking population, but then in the last census, had a decent plop. This made me a little bit worried, but I also wanted to look at, you can see what the metropolitan area is. So it's the Kansas City metropolitan area. I open that up and you can see, okay, that's had some really strong growth. And so this sort of matches up with the trends that have happened in a lot of cities where, the metro area is growing, but the city itself wasn't. And now maybe there's, I'm sorry about that. My recorder froze again. I really need to get a new software and I apologize. But so I think I was just saying, there's a lot of places where the city itself is growing or wasn't growing, but the metro area was. And now then the city had sort of a resurgence. And so I've seen that theme play out, but have not, so it seems like what's going on here, you definitely want to dig into anytime you have a big shift in the population change, something you want to dig into. So the next thing I looked at, the FEMA flood map, um, and just to see, is this in a flood zone? It looks like it's not. The map is working really slow today. I'm sure that their website is struggling with a lot of activity because of everything going on. But I'm still comfortable with it. But if you're going to put a lot of money into this property, you might want to pick another day and double check that. I also took a little street view of it. This is a really old picture for some reason. Google doesn't have a new street view since 2014. Usually you'll get, a much newer one. But you can look, see where it fits. Is it backed up to anything that's undesirable? But so I actually really liked how that looked. I'm gonna close some of these tabs. See if that's not the reason that my software is freezing. But so, beyond that, what were we doing, right? We want to find out, is that 207 value, is that a decent value, right? Which was the 48 tokens times the 43 to 26. Yeah, 207, almost 208,000. I always start with homes.com. They actually said 184,000, so we're quite a bit over that. I think that's a little bit worrisome, but they think, it should be worth more than it was a year ago, which is when that appraisal was done. And they give a range that is, not too far off. So, I don't love it, but it's not too scary. They're not so far off that I think, oh, maybe that appraisal is just terrible. And then the next one I looked at is Trulia. I think they, are also usually somewhat decent. You get 199. Okay, so now we're pretty close, right? If I believe this price, I'm really okay investing in that with a decent yield and a tenant in place. This isn't one that I'm looking at it as those discount tokens in a rough market. This is one where um, I'm expecting to get some long-term growth in this market and also a decent yield while I hold it. I checked on Redfin too. This was the most worrisome one, 176. And so it's tough to figure out how, they're, I mean, they're not really all over the place, but again, they give you a range and it gets you up to 200,000. That's not too far off. And then Zillow. So I like to look at all these platforms because if they have, uh, you know, different amounts, it's, there could be different reasons for it, right? They might have bad data. You can always look at, well, on some of them, you can look at the comps that they use and some of them that you can't. You can get a lot of info from these. And I think that I'm just running through quickly what I did and then what I think you should do on every one. But this is definitely, I spent a lot of time looking at a lot of these sites before I clicked record. I think it's important that you do too before you click buy. They gave us a rent estimate of 1441. I find those to be pretty far off a lot of times. This one has been rented for 1,600 a month. Signed a new lease on their renewal for 1,650. Um, I think part of it is this is a nicely updated property. You can't, as far as rental properties go. Um, the online platforms don't always get a good sense of that. And so I looked at Rentometer as well. I closed it and I'm not going to try to find that again. I'm just going to try to. I'm just moving relatively quickly on this one. I don't have a lot of time, but it's one that I think I'm going to pull the trigger on, and so I wanted to just share it before I did that. Um, so value, it's close enough for me. The rent, I think, they've had it rent and then increase the rent, and so I think that that's pretty. I feel pretty good about it. You can see that this has been um on the platform. Let's see, how long is this platform? Year, 90 days. So it's October 12th of last year, it looks like. Yeah. And so, it's been on there a while. There's been some big dips. This recent one, I wish I had caught. It was because of a glitch where the rental yield had shown zero, even though they had collected rent. It is just a good example of how there's opportunities to be had on here, just because of the inefficiency of the market and sort of some of the problems that they've had. I missed out on that. Is that a reason to not buy it today? I don't think so. I mean, I think that, the value is pretty close to where I'd want it to be. It's got a tenant in place. It's got decent rental yield. You can see, they have had estimates, to pay for some, repairs in the flooring and, you definitely read all of this stuff, but after going through everything, I feel pretty good about this. But one of the things I wanted to look at is the market versus the limit order for this, right? So, it looks like. So, what am I going to buy here? About 20 tokens. Let's see. Well, I'm going to buy just 20 tokens, I think. So 20 tokens. Um, you see, current market price 47,768. If I buy all those tokens, but then if you look at the fees, we have market lending fee. And so this is to do a market order, it's adding $23. So what if I do, so look, my total cost there, $1,025.80. It does always apply my rent balance to it. So, it is actually a couple bucks more than that. This is money that I've collected and is sitting in my account. But so $1,025.80. But what if we switch this to a limit order? Because I see that there's those sales out there, so I can just match right up with that. I'm using my Lofty wallet. Oh, actually, it ends up. Oh, and then I do the limit order for $48, which I know those tokens exist. See, the fees on these limit orders are less. Still making the same operating reserve deposit. And so it's going to save me about 15 bucks by doing this as a limit order, even though this $48 is higher than the current quoted market rate. And I know that is confusing, but it is it's definitely something that we need to look at, if you're trying to save money when buying these. And so, like I said, I mean, this is one I'm going to pull the trigger on. I don't think it's a huge. I like the market, right? I think it is growing. It's got a decent current yield. Um, the value scares me a little. If I thought that this was going to get liquidated soon, I could, I would lose a little bit of money on that, but it doesn't look like we'd be hurt too bad. And it doesn't, this isn't in a market like some of the, Chicago or Cleveland or Memphis ones that I've looked at where, um, when it's vacant, selling it makes the most sense sometimes because like we have a hard time getting tenants in some of those and whatnot. So in any case, I'm gonna pull the trigger on this. Let's see, it's 20 tokens on my Lofty wallet, $48 limit price. Applying my rent balance. There's some fees. Submit that, and as usual, it takes a little bit of time, or we'll see, but it usually takes a little time for that to actually go through. I'm going to take a second to remind you, if you don't, I'd really appreciate it if you haven't already, if you'd like this video. If you have questions about any aspects of how Lofty works, how ground floor works, I'm getting into Landa a little bit more, but having some problems with the way my money is moved onto there. It doesn't seem like it's working right. But or any other platforms, I'm happy to take a look at and share what I can. Um, it doesn't look like this is actually going to happen while I'm sitting here, so I'm going to have to close my recorder. I don't know why it interacts. This particular site in particular. Oh, okay, cool. Made it happen. Bought those. So in the future, I'll give you an update on how that's going. Until then, I'm going to keep making mistakes so that you don't have to.